Everything is not going to just change for the better. Some things you got to live with. Some things you got to accept. This is what it is. There's a lot of things you can work on and adjust and maybe improve, but some things about yourself, you're not going to be able to change. You're not going to be able to change certain things about who you are as a person because a lot of stuff is ingrained in you, as a kid, and you may have physical insecurities and a lot of things you can work on, but there are just some things you just can't change. And I think it's important to kind of grow comfortable with the fact that, you know, you can change a lot of things about yourself for the better, but there are things that you just have to accept and own as part of you. And that is hard for a lot of people to do because a lot of us live in this insecure state 24/7 about something about ourselves. Everybody has insecurities. I do, you do, everybody walking up and down the street has insecurities. You know what I'm saying? But you got to realize the trap a lot of time is that people go overboard with trying to fix everything about themselves. And this is where they've hit a point where they're still not happy, even after all that fixing, because they've grown to this point where they've developed the mindset that they're not good enough. And now they've done everything to themselves and they still feel like there's more work to be done because now they have a disorder now mentally with themselves, whether it's body dysmorphia, whether it's something internal going on. They got to get validation from a bunch of people now. Maybe they didn't get a lot of attention growing up. Maybe they didn't get a lot of girls growing up. A lot of people just overindulge in things they were deprived of or whatever it is they dealing with. People are always trying to fix certain things to the highest degree possible to make up ground, to make up, time they may have missed or just wanting to be a different person. But again, you got to realize everything that you want to fix is not fixable. And it's okay. It is okay. It's okay. Like really, like let that soak in. Like it's okay. It's all right. I promise you, the average person is not going to see your biggest insecurity, man. Because a lot of the time, we're the only people that are able to identify our insecurities. You tell somebody your insecurity, they probably would have never even noticed that about you until you told them. So a lot of times it's psychological, because all of this is indirectly for us to have people look at us in a certain kind of way. But you have to really understand that at a certain point, after all the quote unquote self improvement, whatever you want to call it, you're going to hit a point where, there's things that you may still not be satisfied with, but you're going to have to learn to be satisfied with because, again, everything is not meant to be changed. And like I said, that's a hard pill to swallow for a lot of people, but I've had to come to terms with that in my personal life. You know what I'm saying? Like, I got insecurities about myself, and I realized over my years of growing into my 20s and being at the age I'm at now, I realized a lot of things that I wanted to change about myself so bad to this day have not changed. But in the process, a lot of other things have changed though, that have made me a better person. Whether it was mental, spiritual, or physical, like there have been improvements, but the things that I set out to change at the top of that list of changing things, a lot of those things never changed because they're just not meant to be changed. It's just who I am. It's just in my genetics, my bio-wired mental dynamic. Like that's just who I am. There's certain things about myself that I cannot fix or alter. I am who I am because that's who I am. That's what makes me unique. So in turn, I have to accept that's what it is. And you're going to go through a stage of denial. You maybe go through depression, because a lot of things we want to change so badly really could be hindering us in our life. You know what I'm saying? really could be stopping us from doing the things that we feel like we could be doing only if we were able to fix this insecurity about ourselves, you know? And that does suck to feel like if you can't fix this one insecurity about yourself, you won't be able to go to the next level. Whether that's true or not, you still have to accept the fact that you can't change it. If you can't change it, you got to accept you can't change it. I'm not saying give up and throw in the towel to the ounce of resistance that comes your way when you're trying to do something different and be better. But you got to realize after years and years of doing something and trying to fix something, you got to kind of realize that maybe this ain't really meant to be fixed. You know, maybe this is just what it is. And that's not a negative talk. That's just truth. Some things are just not meant to be fixed. And I've come to terms with that in my life because I realize you will fall into a trap where you will become overly obsessed over that one particular insecurity that is so insignificant to your life. But for you, it is super important. And to other people, they don't even notice this insecurity that you have on this pedestal. But in the process of that, you waste so much time. You miss out on so many opportunities, so many different people, because you're so locked in your cage of trying to recreate yourself that God already put his paintbrush on. And it's like you got to really mature and understand, like, this is who you are. And if people don't like you for who you are, that's not for you to be around. Those people are not for you. That's it. That's all. There is no need for you to alter yourself if you're doing it for social reasons so people can like you and want to be around. No, you need to understand if they're not accepting you for who you are, you do not need to be around them. You need to cut them off. Those are not your people. Stop trying to force yourself into a crowd that's already crowded. End of the day, you gotta love and accept yourself, and this ain't about trying to be over sentimental. This is some real shit. You got grown ass men out here, man, that have potential to be something decent in life, at least, but they're self-sabotaging themselves because they got this dumbass insecurity that don't mean shit in the grand scheme of things, but because they living on social media, they living on TikTok, they living on Instagram, they feel like they're not good enough. And they feel like if they had that would change everything. It probably wouldn't change shit because your mindset is already fucked up. Once your mindset is already disfigured and dismantled from just low self-esteem and low confidence over the years, you're going to have to rebuild your internal infrastructure. And that's going to take way longer than any physical transformation because your internal hardware is program again since a child, from your teenage years to your early adulthood, just to switch everything around 360 to be a more mentally stable person that is able to notice when you're slipping back into your old ways and to realize your thought process and your patterns of thinking is altered because of an emotion that triggered something in you. And that takes work. That takes time. And that right there is where the hard work really begins when it comes to changing yourself, because that is not an easy task. But whatever it is, you got to accept, you got to love everything about yourself, because end of the day, you were just a sperm that made it to that egg. You beat out all those other sperms and you survived the whole process and you came out in one piece to be born. That ain't no coincidence. Anything could have happened. Your ass would not even been here if something would have went wrong in that process. So you got to ask yourself, why am I here? Because you can waste your time worrying about somebody else's story, somebody else's reality, and it's not doing nothing for you, because you're now living in a third person perspective, watching their life through a glass mirror, while your life is on the other side, on the side you on, waiting for you to look at it, waiting for you to take attention to your own circumstances. That's why I say social media is a lie, because a lot of things on social media is to get your emotions bubbling, whether it's negative, positive, sexual, fear, whatever. It's there to trigger something. And a lot of us are so mentally and spiritually weak. The smallest ounce of anything will trigger us and get us going to the most just craziest lengths to scratch an itch about something that we feel like we gotta scratch now. So, like I said, you gotta learn how to accept things. You can't change everything. You can't change everything. Take some of the weight off your shoulders. Take some of that weight off your shoulders. You can't change everything. You can change a lot, but you can't change everything. And that's the thing you gotta realize. If you don't understand that, at some point, you're going to look up and be old as fuck, mad at yourself because you wasted all your life chasing after an illusion. That's the worst way to go out. Save yourself that time and that energy. Accept yourself.